This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. Nearly 1.5 billion people, mainly in Asia and Africa, were living without electricity in 2009. That latest count from the International Energy Agency was an improvement. In Asia, 3 out of 4 people in developing countries had electricity in rural areas. So did almost everyone in cities. But in Africa, the rate was less than 70% in cities and just 1/4 of the people in rural areas. There are many efforts to find low-cost ways to light homes. One idea is a water bulb. This system has recently been used to brighten more than 100 homes in the Korokocho settlement in Nairobi, Kenya. These included the home of Medina Musin's family. Members of a youth group installed the water bulb. First, they filled a 2-liter plastic bottle with water and a little bleach. Next, they cut a hole in the metal roof. They pressed the bottle halfway into the hole. Then they used silicone caulk to seal around it to prevent rain from coming in. In no time, the home was lit with about 50 to 60 watts worth of light. The combination of water and bleach refracts light from the sun and a full moon. The bleach keeps the water clear. Medina Musin, like many of her neighbors, was spending a lot of kerosene to light her home. Now, she says she will save almost half of her weekly income. Her son Abbas can now read a book at home in the middle of the day. Veronica Wanjiru and her 2 children also have a water bulb in their home. She says her older son had to repeat a grade in school because he could not get his homework done when their home was dark. She says, "I've seen a big difference, especially with my children's education. If they're given homework, they can finish it on time. And they don't have to wait for me to come and light the candle or go outside and do their studies outside so that they can finish their homework." In the Philippines, a non-profit group called My Shelter Foundation has used a similar low-cost lighting solution in thousands of homes. The project is called A Liter of Light. The head of the group, Iak Diaz, says the idea is better than candles and kerosene and offers a great new use for old plastic soda bottles. It's safer, it's healthier, it's brighter, and the funny thing is, the light bulb actually comes from the place you'd least expect it, which is the trash bin. So it's the cheapest light bulb in the world. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. You can watch a video about the water bulb at voaspecialenglish.com. This is the VOA Special English Development Report. Dye can bring a little color to life. Most clothing is colored with dyes. Modern manufactured dyes can be costly. Natural dyes from plant and animal products have been used since ancient times. So this week, we describe a natural way to dye wool. The advice comes from information written by Jenny Dean of the Intermediate Technology Development Group in Britain. This anti-poverty group is now called Practical Action. There are several methods to put dye onto material. The vat method, for example, can be used to dye wool with onion skins. For this example, use 100 grams of natural wool. The wool must be clean. Leave it overnight in water and liquid soap. Then wash it with clean, warm water. Gently squeeze out the extra water. A solution called a mordant is used in the dyeing process. A mordant helps fix the dye to the material. Traditionally, mordants were found in nature. Wood ash is one example. But chemical mordants, such as alum, are popular today. Alum is sold in many stores. It is often mixed with cream of tartar, a fine powder commonly used in cooking. Mix 8 grams of alum with 7 grams of cream of tartar in a small amount of hot water. Add the solution to a metal pan of cool water. Next, add the wool and place the mixture over heat. Slowly bring the liquid to 82 degrees Celsius. Heat the mixture for 45 minutes. After it cools, remove the wool and wash it. To prepare the dye solution, cover 30 grams of onion skins with water. Use only the dry brown outer skins. Boil the liquid until the onion skins lose their color, about 45 minutes. Remove the skins after the dye cools. Now it is time to dye the wool. Place the wool into the dye and heat the mixture. Bring it to a boil, then immediately reduce the heat to 82 degrees. Now heat the dye for about 45 minutes or until the wool is the desired color. Keep in mind that wet wool looks darker than it is. Once the dye cools, remove the wool and wash it. Now the wool is orange or yellow, or at least it should be. Internet users can get the full details at practicalaction.org. Again, the address is practicalaction.org, and enter the word dye, D-Y-E, in the search box. We will post a link to the site at voaspecialenglish.com. And that's the VOA Special English Development Report. This is the VOA Special English Development Report. More than 1.5 billion people around the world live without electricity. Finding better ways to bring light to the poor is the goal of researchers like David Irvin Halliday. In the late 1990s, the Canadian professor was working in Nepal when his return flight was canceled. A delay gave him time to take a 14-day hiking trip in the Himalayas. As he tells it, one day he looked in the window of a school and noticed how dark it was. This is a common problem for millions of children around the world, and not just at school, but also at home. Many families use kerosene oil lamps. There are many problems with these lamps. They produce only a small amount of light. They are dangerous to breathe, and they are a big fire danger, causing many injuries and deaths each year. Kerosene costs less than other forms of lighting, but it is still costly in poor countries. Professor Irvin Halliday says many people spend well over $100 a year on the fuel. When he returned to Canada, he began researching ways to provide safe, clean, and affordable lighting. He began experimenting with light-emitting diodes, LEDs, at his laboratory at the University of Calgary in Alberta. As a professor of renewable energy, he already knew about the technology. Light-emitting diodes are small glass lamps that use much less electricity than traditional bulbs and last much longer. Professor Irvin Halliday used a 1-watt bright white LED made in Japan. He found it on the internet and connected it to a bicycle-powered generator. He remembers thinking it was so bright a child could read by the light of a single diode. In 2000, after much research and many experiments, he returned to Nepal to put the systems into homes. His Light Up the World Foundation has now equipped the homes of 25,000 people in 51 countries. He says the one-time cost of the system is less than $100. So 1 year of kerosene would pay for a solid-state lighting system. Now, his aim is to develop a lower-cost lighting system. In January, David Irvin Halliday left the University of Calgary. He has also decided to give up leadership in the Light Up the World Foundation to start a company in India. And that's the VOA Special English Development Report.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report in Special English. Every year, IBM chooses 5 new technologies that the company believes will change the world within the next 5 years. The list is called 5 in 5. IBM says it considers its own research and the new directions of society and business when identifying the technologies. This year, the list describes devices that will extend our 5 senses. Imagine looking for clothes online and touching your computer or smartphone to feel the cloth. IBM's Vice President of Innovation, Bernie Meyerson, says this technology could be available in the next 5 years. Touch is just one of the senses that technology will help to extend. IBM says smart machines will soon be able to listen to the environment and give us information about the sounds they hear. For example, Bernie Meyerson says an advanced speech recognition system will tell new parents why their baby is crying. Smart machines will also help identify medical conditions. If you sneeze on your computer or cell phone, the device will study the molecules that came out of your mouth. It will then tell you whether you need to see a doctor. Another prediction is that computers will be better able to not just look at images, but understand what they show and act on that information. Bernie Meyerson says IBM scientists are also developing a computer system that can examine and combine molecules to create the most popular flavors and smells. Mark Malouf is a computer scientist at Georgetown University. He says it will be exciting to see what young people will do with the mobile technology, networking, and computing power of tomorrow. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. Kane's Arcade is one of the latest videos to go viral on the internet. Since early April, the video has been viewed millions of times on Vimeo and YouTube. It tells the story of 9-year-old Kane Monroy in Los Angeles. He used cardboard boxes, scissors, tape, and other materials to build a game center in his father's used car parts store. Filmmaker Nervin Malik was the first to pay to play Kane's games. He is also responsible for the Kane's Arcade video. In the video, he explains how he met Kane. The filmmaker had to get a door handle for his 1996 Toyota Corolla. So he pulled into this used auto parts store and came across this elaborate cardboard arcade. He asked Kane how much it cost to play. He's like, for $1, you get 4 turns, but for $2, you get a fun pass. He asked Kane how many turns you get with a fun pass. He goes, 500 turns for a fun pass. So Mr. Malik got a fun pass and the idea for the video. Kane's Arcade has basketball and soccer, game tokens and tickets, and colorful bags of cotton candy. It even has one of those machines where you try to pick up a prize with a mechanical claw. Like at most arcades, the claw game is hard to win. But at $2 for a fun pass worth 500 plays, it's well worth the effort. Nervin Malik says his visit to Kane's Cardboard Arcade gave him much more than he expected. He told us, "I felt like a little kid again, and it was like he'd given me this tremendous, unexpected gift." In return, Mr. Malik gave Kane an unexpected gift too. He created a flash mob through Facebook. He set up a date and time and invited people to come and help him fill Kane's Arcade with customers. The event was also published on the Hidden LA and Reddit websites. The news spread quickly. Kane had 500 Facebook fans by the time the flash mob took place. More than 100 adults and children visited Kane's Arcade that day. Kane called it the best day of his life. Since then, he and his arcade have become famous, and so has Mr. Malik. In his words, "There's a reason I was driving a '96 Corolla, and it's looking like I might be able to get to make movies that I've been trying to make for a long time." Mr. Malik created a scholarship fund for Kane, and to help other creative kids, the Gold Hirsch Foundation has agreed to match every donation up to $250,000. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Prisuti.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report. California Governor Jerry Brown wants to increase partnerships between his state and China. The governor traveled to China recently to seek Chinese investment in things like high-speed railways, renewable energy, and electric vehicles. He spoke at China's Tsinghua University. The governor called for a partnership between the United States and China to develop technologies to reduce greenhouse gases. Governor Brown met with Prime Minister Li Keqiang and China's Minister of Environmental Protection, Zhou Shengxian. Mr. Brown and Mr. Zhou signed a non-binding agreement to share information about policies to reduce pollution. Pollution is a leading concern in Beijing, where officials advise people to stay indoors when air pollution levels are at their highest. California's biggest city, Los Angeles, has successfully reduced the problem with smog that the city had for years. Its efforts included improving its vehicle emission standards. The state also offers special incentives or rewards for clean energy policies. Last year, California held its first sale of carbon credits under the state's greenhouse gas reduction law. The law requires big polluting industries to buy credits to release carbon dioxide, methane, and related gases. Governor Brown also hopes to create 20,000 megawatts of renewable electricity by 2020. California-based environmental scientists and representatives from environmental consulting firms also attended Governor Brown's speech in Beijing. They say rising air pollution levels in China make it a good market for technologies that help to reduce the problem. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal. I'm Alex Villarreal with the VOA Special English Development Report. Sunday, October 10th, was World Mental Health Day. This year's observance centered on the relationship between mental health and chronic physical conditions like diabetes and cancer. The World Health Organization says more than 450 million people suffer from poor mental health. The most common disorders are depression and schizophrenia. Mental health experts also include other disorders like drug and alcohol abuse that affect millions of people. Elena Berger is with the World Federation for Mental Health. That organization, based in the United States, held the first World Mental Health Day in 1992. Mrs. Berger says mental health problems are most severe in poor countries that lack the resources to deal with them. She says in developing countries, a huge number of people, up to 85%, cannot get any form of mental health treatment. Experts say about half of all mental health problems first appear before the age of 15. The countries with the highest percentages of young people are in the developing world. That means they are also the countries with the poorest levels of mental health resources. The WHO says many low and middle-income countries have only one child psychiatrist for every 1 to 4 million people. Worldwide, depression is the leading mental health problem and a leading cause of disability. In 2002, the World Health Organization estimated that more than 154 million people suffered from depression. But Elena Berger, from the Mental Health Federation, says other kinds of diseases often get more attention. She says people pay more attention to communicable diseases and not enough attention to mental health conditions. She says these are real disabilities where people are not able to work to their full ability and cannot earn an income. So there is a strong effect on families as well. Mrs. Berger says her organization and the WHO are pushing to have governments include mental health care in their development goals. She says this could greatly improve the availability of treatment and services worldwide. She says people with mental disabilities would be recognized as groups that need special support and not be excluded and ignored. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report in Special English. China recently said it considered launching a drone strike against a Burmese drug trafficker. Na Cam was wanted in the killings of 13 Chinese sailors on the Mekong River in 2011. China's top drug official said the plan was to bomb the drug dealer's mountain hiding place in northeastern Burma using unmanned aircraft. The official said the drone strike idea was passed over in order to capture Na Cam alive. He was seized last April in a joint operation with Laos. That China considered using a drone strike is a sign of its increasing development of unmanned flight technology. It also suggests that China is seriously considering using drone attacks outside of its borders. Peter Dutton is with the United States Naval War College. He says China is moving away from its earlier policy of non-interference in international affairs. He says the country is becoming more active in protecting its interests beyond its borders. The United States has led the world in drone technology for years. It is known to use UAV, or unmanned aerial vehicle strikes, against foreign targets. In recent years, China has greatly improved its UAV technology. It showed off many of its new models at a recent air show in the country. One of the drones has a range of over 3,200 kilometers. China is also modernizing its global navigation system to compete with those of the United States, Russia, and Europe. The United States exports unmanned aircraft to only a few of its closest allies. China is now seen as an increasingly reliable, lower-cost supplier. Several countries have bought or built their own UAVs, mostly for surveillance purposes. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report in Special English. China has new rules that require people to use their real names when registering for internet services. The rules also require internet companies operating in China to remove material said to be objectionable. Chinese lawmakers approved the measures on December 28th at the end of a 5-day meeting of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress. The new rules say network service providers must strengthen management of information released by users. The providers have been ordered to stop the spread of banned information and to deal with the problem. The Xinhua news agency says those steps include removing the information from the internet and reporting it to the government. Chinese officials say the rules are aimed at protecting the personal information and stopping abuses like junk email. But critics say real name registration will discourage individuals from reporting corruption and official abuses because they are afraid of possible action against them. The new internet regulations go into effect as the Chinese government campaigns against virtual private networks, or VPNs. Some reports say the government is increasing its effort to block VPNs. Duncan Clark is an advisor to Stanford University's Graduate School of Business. He says there is often an increase in internet censorship during sensitive events, like the recent 18th Communist Party Congress, which named China's new leaders. He says these periods are normally followed by reduced enforcement. But this time, he says, it is unclear if that will be the case with the new leadership. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Prasuti.